everybody. How y'all doing today? Today is a good day. I wanted to come on to have a conversation about, things that are happening in Gambia and things that you should do and should not do, in my opinion. Who am I? But I can speak to the validity of my stay in the Gambia. And I want to start off by saying that sometimes we put ourselves in positions that are not best for us. As I've mentioned before, when I went to Gambia, I planned it. So I am not that around the way kind of girl. So methodically, I knew what I needed to survive in Gambia, and I put myself in a position where I could pay for my stay at least for 5 years in advance. And I also shipped, like I said before, everything I needed from Costco's and Sam's. Literally, my house was a complete bunker. I had all the toiletries I like, paper towels, the soaps that I use, all the natural herbs that I take. So I stockpiled it, and I had enough to share with people who ran into health complications. I would make a lot of herbs, but I also went financially prepared. I took about maybe 70,000 US dollars because I knew that I wanted to give it at least 3 years to see how things panned out. So I had like an entry plan and an exit plan for Gambia, and that was what I stuck to, was the idea that I had a purpose, I had a plan, and as a single woman, I knew that I needed to have some consistency there, and I've never been like a street girl or a hustler in that kind of way, and so I grew up the last one of 10. We were poor, dirt poor, and I didn't even know it because my mother and grandmother were such planners and they knew how to manage their homes. We would farm, we would garden, we grew our own food. My mother and grandmother would can their foods, and so we would have food for years based on our canning, and then my uncles would fish and hunt and do those sorts of things for our protein. So we were able to live off the land without begging or without hustling. And then we were also very community driven. Our neighbors had 17 to 10 kids. It was like the Jethros and the Clampets. Everybody had a lot of kids back in those days. But when we fell short, or if my mother needed a cup of sugar, she'd say, "Go up to Miss Viola's house and give me a cup of sugar." And I call and say, "I'm on my way." And then she would get there and say, "Oh, I need some oil. Bring me, some oil or something." And so that's what we did to support one another. So I think going anywhere abroad, ill prepared, and making yourself vulnerable is dangerous, particularly for single women travelers. If a single woman wants to travel, she needs to be in a space that is guarded and protected. I lived in a gated community, and so I understood what I needed. I shipped like ring cameras and all of those things that I could use. So my house had cameras in it. I can see inside and outside. And I also was able to, make sure I had enough for entertainment. If I wanted to take some excursions, I didn't have to totally rely on somebody or get connected in groups that weren't quite right. So there's this false appearance of community, which really didn't exist. Now, I've never been a person who was a follower, but always a leader. And I'm not bragging. It's just that my parents taught me how to be a critical thinker. And they also taught me to stand on my own 2 feet. So a lot of it was just um, going by my instincts and by my gut. And I say that because, when you go somewhere as a single traveler, you want to connect and you want to be around like minded people. You want to find your tribe. But when your tribe is not prepared for the journey that they have taken and they randomly saw something or heard something, and then they irrationally make a decision to travel abroad without having the means, the funds, the knowledge, the skills, or the abilities, the only resort is to try to survive. And so I found a lot of people, both the Jamaicans, the people coming from Jamaica, British, as well as America. They were not prepared to take this journey. And you also have this camaraderie. It is very distinct differences between Black British, the Jamaicans, as well as the Afro Americans. And so those differences sometimes does not create the spaces or the opportunities for us to have real dialogue. I found that, and I'm just going to honestly say what my experiences were. There was a lot of pretense, and I want to be careful how I say it. Really, I do, because I don't want to offend anyone, but I do want to speak the truth. There are distinct differences between these groups of people. Everyone brings something different to the table, but what we all bring to the table that's alike is racial trauma and the inability to work together. There's this thing, the Black British against the Afro Americans. In my opinion, I felt like the British people was pretending to get along with African Americans, but they had their own experiences, which we were not privy of or part of. So it was really separated. And I felt like they saw themselves as elitists and better than African Americans. Every time I would have a dialogue, you would see like the British come out or the Queen's Court. The Brits are seen, they're on, they're managing things and they're very proper and they want things to be done a certain way. And what I saw with African Americans, they were more um, free hearted. They really wanted to share the culture and the experience, but was packing a lot of hurt and a lot of pain with them. I also felt like the Brits and the Jamaicans could better fit in Gambia, anywhere in Africa, really, because the cultures are similar in Jamaica. That it would be in Africa. So the Gambians, they like reggae music. On top of that, they have this religion that they're dealing with. But I found the British people to be very passive aggressive, and also there was a distrust for me because there was no truth and no transparency. I've, attended certain events and I would just be that fly on the wall, observing and watching people's mannerisms and behaviors. And a lot of it just simply repulsed me because what you see is not what you get. You find most of them coming in all groups from horrible, despicable situations in Jamaica, in Britain, or in America, just on barely get along street, dealing with um, the police issues, dealing with poverty, dealing with systemic racism, that type of aggression that comes from that, leaving and arriving in Africa or in Gambia with not having lived in their own skin and dealt, with the situation. And so when you make a move to a foreign land and you got a few $100s, maybe $5,000 or $6,000 in your pocket, you're going to have some hard times. Gambia is a poor country. It's a third world country. It's literally ground zero, but you still need to be able to survive and to take care of yourself. You just can't go drinking the water, eating the types of food that they eat, the meat that they eat. It takes a while for your system to adjust. And so, what I found was this push and pull between the diaspora and community. And it was quite frankly sickening to watch. You have certain groups that were skilled at lying, cheating, stealing, scamming. There's a lot of issues with land. All of a sudden, when you arrive to Gambia, you become a professional real estate person. You're selling land, renting houses, something you've never done before. They see that as an opportunity to invite you back home, but home to what? And what will you do when you get home? What kind of plans will you have when you arrive on those shores? Because I'm telling you, the same people that are inviting you are the same people that have not prepared themselves and have hit ground zero, that bottom, just like the indigenous people of that land are trying to make it, trying to do the best that they can. Then you have us who've left America, who've left Britain, who've left Jamaica, and come and experience a whole different environment, another level of suffering. So, what can you do? That breeds opportunities for disaster, and it also creates in a person that will or desire to do whatever they can do to make it. So many of them start lying, start cheating, start scamming. The land scan thing is a serious issue, and it's not just the diasporans who are doing it, it's the entire country. People are really struggling with the land issue. I've also, was invited to a couple of groups, but as I said earlier, I don't do group things and I don't do them well. I don't like being around nagging women, men who are abusive or don't know how to have decent conversations. That's not how I roll. That's not how I roll with that. I want to be around women who are productive, who are having real conversations, heartfelt conversations, who are making change, not just because they're talking about it, but you can see the change that they are making and that the community is being positively impacted by them. So it's not just women talking, pretending to be doing something that they're not. You can actually go to the villages, go into places, and to see the impact they have made. What I do find that repulses me is sometimes the vulgar, and I don't mean just profanity and vulgar, but the way single woman presents herself in Gambia is disturbing to me. It's so desperate. And they put themselves in a position out of loneliness, out of hurt. This creates problems in their lives. So this thing about coming together and uniting is false. It's a false reality. How can you come together and you haven't united with yourself? You don't know who you are as a person. You don't love yourself. You don't respect yourself. Because let me tell you something. If these people respected themselves, they will not do and say half the stuff that they do. Now, I got a lot of flack because they felt like I was doing too much. Why are you doing that for those people? Why are you supporting the school? Those kids don't care about you. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't offer services to them. But I was fortunate enough to be blessed because I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and Phi Beta Sigma. My brothers and my family members, they supported my move. So when I wanted to do supply drive, support the schools, Phi Beta Sigma came through. And they did that a few times. They donated monies in order to get school supplies for these children. And then I had another sister who came through. She offered like dry goods, dry foods, and I was able to issue that out to villages. And then the first time I went, I had about 800 eyeglasses from the both fraternity sorority family members who bought donut glasses by the loads. It was more than 800. And then I had someone come on my page and said, well, the arrivals did it first. That was a bold-faced lie, but who am I to argue with somebody who doesn't take the time to know? I was long in Gambia before the rivals ever made it to Gambia on Gambia shores. But I'm not going to go back and forth because my goal was to provide the glasses. And then I went into a village and connected the Tujarine Health Clinic with some funders who could do medical equipment, medical supplies, and then also do some funding from the Worldwide Fistula Foundation, and that was dealing with FGM, female genital mutilation. So all those things was happening in the backdrop. And what I was disgusted by the most is that here we are, we have an opportunity to connect, to reconnect, and to empty ourselves and to fill it up with something beautiful that could make some changes and make a real impact in people's lives. And what do? We go somewhere, take all of our shenanigans, all of our nonsense, all of our fears, all of our traumas, and then we start hustling and mistreating the very people who were really elated to see us coming. And let me tell you something. Although I was prepared, I never just threw out money. And what I did give, it was given in the way of building a well, putting water in a school, building Gambia's first door outdoor cafeteria. And I didn't do it alone. I did it with the support of people who understood the mission and what was at hand. So there's a lot of dishonesty happening, and there's a lot of disrespect and hatred from one another. And just because you hear somebody say we need to work together and sisters are doing this, don't believe it. The sisters aren't doing that, and the sisters aren't going to invite you to different places. And if you go and if you're not on that same page of kissing their tail and doing a bunch of drama, then you won't be invited again. And what I found was every time they discovered something, I figured out what they wanted to do and open up a business, then they would invite you just so you could come support them and they could gain from you. But when there was an American doing something and they opened something, was there real support there? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. And the same thing with Anja versus Shakina death. How they treated these two different women uh, was enough to make anybody sick. But as you can see, there was a real push to get a Shakina more recognized than it was Anja. There was a lot of negativity about Anja based on her videos, but did they show the negativity of Shakina's videos when she was doing whatever she was doing with the land? All the allegations, okay, there were allegations on both sides, but it appears to be they highlighted what Anja Africa was doing and failed to mention what Shakina Shinadu was doing. And so that speaks to the differences of the group and how there's no real effort going forward to collectively work together to solve our diaspora problems. There's no efforts being made. So I want people to really not just think, but to consider all of these things and go introspective to figure out, does your heart and your eyes lined up with what you see and what you hear? Because if you look at it long enough, you'll be able to see all of the shenanigans, all of the nonsense that's taking place. And I would hope that we won't engage on that level because we're moving in an era of rebuilding this great nation. Now, many are called, but few are chosen, and that's just the reality. So, will you be a person of integrity or will you be this gossiping, backbiting person that is full of self hatred and full of disrespect for yourself, your culture, and for others? Honestly, I am quite sickened by all of the stuff that I've seen on YouTube. After being on the ground for 3 years and knowing the truth, these people will not speak truth to power at all. They don't know themselves. They're on barely get along street. They're hustling to survive. They didn't go prepared. Now, if you have a monthly stipend, uh, retirement, or military retirement, whatever it is, then you have to make sure you're utilizing your retirement money to the best of your ability. And let me tell you something, this disrespect, your age ain't got nothing to do with it. I've seen 60, 70-year-old women from the diaspora act like they 20 and 30 years old because they hustling too and they want to be there. And I don't understand it. I can't get with that program. I can't do it. So the reality of it is this: there is a lot of issues between the diasporas. There really are. The British people, honestly, they don't like the Americans. That's just the truth about it. And they pretend that they do because the Americans have more exposure and more access than British people. But the British people have the European and the British and the Queen Court kind of knowledge. So it's more of a uppity type of thing than a down home type of thing. And what you'll find the challenges are, and even Gambians can see the difference between the Black British and the Americans. And quite frankly, they're tired. They don't understand how Black people from anywhere cannot come together and have this community conversation. Because I mentioned before, their hierarchy and their structure depends on community and tribunals, and so that's where we fall short. But there's a lot of realities, false realities on the ground, and I think you really have to, when you're listening to these people, listen and watch them very closely. And not only that, do what your heart tells you to do and be the person you were created to be. Now, if you function like that, you function like that. But it is better to open yourself up to the realities of the potentials you have in you rather than the challenges that you've had to deal with and overcome. So, and if you haven't overcame those challenges, it's a good opportunity to work on them, to be able to sit with yourself, to stay out of mess when you get there. Now, I spent a lot of time alone because I didn't want to be affiliated or associated with the mess. So and so is over here stealing and land scabbing. There was so many people doing that. It's not just one, and it was a network of people working together. And just like criminal behavior, just like a drug addict, something happens, they have a disagreement, and then they split up, and then they start squealing and telling on each other. Snitches get stitches. Some people got hurt, some people left Gambia and went other places, and some people remained and tried to create other networks. So it does exist. And to the level, it created some serious problems for people who trusted these people and really wanted to go home, whether it was Gambia, Ghana, Kenya, it exists everywhere. But the reality is this, in my opinion, I was focused on doing what I was called to do and walking in my purpose and figuring that thing out. Respect was the utmost importance to me, and it remains the utmost importance. So if I can't love you without borders, respect you, then you won't find me in your circles because I do not advocate for wrongdoing. Now, I once took a tour with a group of women. I thought it was strange. I thought it was lovely. I had a decent conversation, talked to a person who was interested in getting some help, but then a week or two later, what I was getting was a band of thieves. It was like I was able to see this network and how they work together, not just British with British, but British with Gambians and Senegalese, or Americans with Gambians and Senegalese. It's a network. And when they fall out with one another, it's horrific. This is what you're seeing, is the nastiness of not living in your truth and the nastiness of not being prepared to care for yourself in another land. So I want to encourage you guys to be critical thinkers when you're listening to these things and read in between the lines, because these people are very cunning. And they have these conversations with the intent of encouraging you to do those things they would not do or didn't do. They need more bait on their hooks. Don't be the bait, be the hook. And make sure you understand that everybody who pretends to be in your corner is not necessarily in your corner. They can be waiting for your downfall. They can be setting you up for failure. And that happens a lot in Gambia. This is a hard conversation to have. And I'm not going to mention names. I'm just going to say you've seen it, you've heard it, and you know who they are, and you're probably still choosing to accept one story over the other when all of them is just messy. It's messy. So I feel bad for the people who could have been positively impacted by us if we would have went um, with a pure heart and good intentions. But because we were not prepared, it changed our intentions. And when you're hungry, when you have no place to go, there's a lot of diasporans who get to Gambia, become homeless, and sleeping on the beach, sleeping anywhere they can. It's because they were not prepared. And I myself have taken in some diasporans at my house, and the only thing they had to do was clean outside. They had their own house outside in the back. It was security quarters or maids quarters. They had their own house in the back, and all they had to do was sweep the compound outside, and they couldn't do that. All they did was try to influence young Gambians. Smoke dope all day. I don't smoke dope. I don't bring strange people to my house. But it was sad. I had to get them to go because they didn't have good intentions, and they were 50, 60-year-old people. It was super ridiculous. So where else you gonna go? You've been everywhere in Gambia, frauding people, stealing from people. You've slept in many different places. And now when someone gives you something for free, and the only thing you have to do is sweep outside, you can't do that. Now you guys know that's a serious problem. That's a serious problem. All you want to do is smoke weed all day. What kind of nonsense is that? So, after that experience, my door was closed because it was bringing too much traffic to me. I had people coming to my house, sitting outside. How many times did I have to tell you not to bring strange people here because I live alone? And that's how people get set up. It's because they, engage them, drink, smoke, all these other things. And when they want more and you cut them off, then they mad at you because their family members don't cut them off. People are not homeless in Gambia. They have a compound, they have a family home. They can always go eat and sit down and share a communal dish with somebody. But when you invite them to your communal table, then you disrespect them and cut them off. They come in for you. And you need to understand that. So that was like some of the major issues. And I had to isolate myself is because I saw it for what it was. And I wasn't going to change who I was as a human being just to be in a circle of people who had no respect for other human beings. They didn't even love themselves. They was just hustling and trying to make it. And the hustle is ugly because you coming from a place that wasn't your lifestyle. You didn't hustle. Now all of a sudden you get to Gambia, you lawyers, you herbalists, you construction work, tech architects, you're building, you're designing, you're real estate, you're doing all these things, you're new broadcasters. It's crazy. But I do want to applaud the sister who opened the Pan African Library. Kudos to her. And I do want to applaud Black Acres of the Gambia. They had a hard time when they first left. You've heard their story and the money they went to Gambia with. They had some challenges, and I watched them as well. And I was just hoping they would turn it around. And I'm so grateful. It's been a full circle for them. And now they're really doing some serious development. We all make mistakes, but you can turn around from your mistakes. And Black Acres has did a completely 360. Some people accept it, some people don't. But what they're doing and what they've been able to achieve is just a beautiful thing. And you don't hear them bashing people, being negative. They've moved on with their life and they're trying to create a space for them and their family and for others. But before you can invite others to your space, you have to build that space. And I believe that's what they're doing. So kudos to Black Acres of the Gambia who have really did a complete 360 and have been able to survive all of the negativity and can see that their future is bright. They have too much to lose to be fooling around with nonsense. So I totally understand it. See, for all those other people, as you can see, they have self destructed and they will continue to do that, to go back and forth with the banter and understanding that there is a big rift in the diasporan community and the British people don't like African American people. And it's simple as that. It really is. I find them to believe that they're better than us. Even when you have a conversation with them, I'm a country girl, but their conversation is such, even the British English is different than American English. And so they want you to pronounce words and spell words the way the British do, when that's not us. We're Americans. We're Afro Americans first. And that's the reality of it. So I want to encourage you not to put yourself in a box, regardless of where you are. And if you are in a box, learn the dimensions and find beauty in that box so that you can be the person that you are designed to be. And that's my thing on Gambia. And I don't know what it's going to take to get these folks to deal with the reality of it is, but you come to a country, there's nothing there. So the only thing you can hustle is land. And it's sad because you don't have to do that when you can enjoy the land and just live on it, live your life in peace. Just enjoy and have a spiritual ownership of this land, and people will accept you just like the Gambians there who've been there their entire lives. Their parents had that land. It's understood that that land becomes ingrained into their family members. But when you have people going there offering peanuts for the land, then that creates an issue. So I just wanted to come on. I didn't want to have this conversation, and I hope I've tried to um, remain respectful and be delicate about the situation. I won't get indignant. I won't speak ill of anybody. That's not the intentions of this video at all. But it is to give those who are keeping an eye out on this migration a good look into what's really happening. It's great. Migration is serious business, and it affords us with beautiful opportunities if only we can recognize what those opportunities are before we start to create conditions and circumstances that go against this great Afro migration. Well, thank you so much. And that was a heavy conversation to have. And I really didn't have it the way I wanted to have it, but that's not in me to do. So I hope you're able to learn something from what I've said. And I want to do a live so we could come on and have a real conversation to talk about it. But until then, peace, light, and love. Ashe.